Alright, here's a little special episode. We are going to build, and I'm totally doing this on the fly. I have a kind of a plan in my head, and that's it. But we are going to build a transmission rebuilding table that has, it'll end up using this perforated metal that you see here. Perforated metal just has a bunch of holes that are punched into it. So it's kind of like really heavy duty screen. It is, I don't know what gauge it is, probably 11 gauge, maybe 12 gauge. It's pretty thick, but anyway, we're gonna build a frame where that's gonna be our table. It's gonna basically be a parts washer. So what it's gonna do is we're gonna have that'll be our surface that we mount on. So we're gonna make a nice frame for it. And that's going to be inside of a tank that has little edges around it, and then below that will be a sump. So now when you tear a transmission apart, it can just drain through whatever, it goes into the sump, and the sump will have a drain on it, and it'll have a valve at the bottom of the drain, and basically I'll be able to choose whether I drain into a waste oil tank, or I can choose to drain into a solvent tank. So that way, once I drain the tank and it's empty, I can rinse the tank out maybe with a little bit of solvent, let it drain into the waste oil, flip it to solvent, and then I'll be recirculating solvent, and I can use the same table as a parts washer, so I can wash all the parts right there on the table as we dismantle it, and we can put it back together right there on the same table. It's going to be big. It's 48 wide, a little over 48 wide, and it's going to be about 28 wide, deep. So it's going to be a good sized bench, and it should be pretty cool. We're going to have to play with pumping ideas and filtering ideas on filtering our fluid and stuff. But I think I have a plan on it, but we'll see if it works. I'm going to use a fuel pump. You don't want to have too much pressure. It sprays, and you'll be basically taking a bath in it as you're going. So you just need flow. So you don't want something that has a ton of pressure and stuff. Anyway, but anyway, here we go. So the very first thing I'm going to show you here. So when you build anything square, you're always basically just fighting square the whole time. So you weld one side, and so you end up putting a bunch of braces and stuff on it. It was pulled this way. So I welded that corner. It was just pulled that way a little bit, so I welded that corner, and then it pulled, of course, in this way. So now it's in this way, and it pulled farther than I wanted it to. So it's quite a bit out at the end of my the square there. I got about 1/8 of an inch, so it's pretty far. I don't want to just weld it right now because I don't think it'll pull it back an 1/8 of an inch. So what we're going to do is I'm going to weld. This is just a normal turnbuckle. I ended up sticking a bolt in it. I just have a bunch of these around, and I'm just going to put that in the corner there, and I need to pull, so I'll tack it on, and then we'll just tighten the turnbuckle up until we get it to square, or about square. I'm going to leave it just a little bit wide so that when I weld it, it'll finish pulling it in. It's not going to take much pressure to pull it. And then once I get this side locked, I'll be real careful on the other side, and we'll kind of do the same thing, just watch it. But I want this real square because I don't want to build, this is the frame for our screen. There's going to be a whole bunch of braces in it. But I want this to be able to drop into our tank. So I want everything really square so that I don't have to build this way undersized to fit. Because I don't want the gaps around the edge for parts to fall in, and I do need this removable just in case we get buildup and stuff down below that we can't rinse out, and I don't want to use a gallon of fluid trying to rinse out the sump. So anyway, so here I go. Okay, so here it is. It's all done. I already threw some parts on it and was using it just to try it out. I mean, you have it, and you may as well use it. You know, I have a normal parts washer, but this was the biggest problem with them. These heads would have totally crushed it. That parts washer. I just have one of the, you know, the normal Harbor Freight parts washers that, you know, most guys have in their shop, but they're so chintzy you can't really put a big head like that on it, or it bends them and stuff. So anyway, so I already get to use it. So that's cool. So how I'm running this thing. It's just that's the battery out of the Project Pontiac, and it's an okay battery, but it's just basically garbage. But I can use it for this. I just have a trickle charger, and then a Napa fuel pump that came off of a parts truck that I had that someone had bypassed to the fuel pump on the motor, and put that thing on there, and it still worked. So then I put a fuel filter on it, just so it picks up clean. So that'll filter. Mostly, hopefully it doesn't pick up too much junk out of there. I got it so it's not sucking off the bottom, but it'll filter out the fluid a little bit from contaminants. Just basically it saves a fuel pump, and then we're not pumping a bunch of grit or something down into our heads or something when we're cleaning stuff. And anyway, you want to mount these low. You don't want to put them above the tank so they're sucking from above. This way, if you mount them low, it actually starts siphoning into this tank, into the pump. It won't just keep siphoning when you turn it off because the final hose is up, but the supply to it will siphon, so it helps the pump quite a bit if you mount them low like that. And then it just has a little trickle charger to keep our battery topped off, since that battery is not the greatest anyway. And then I just have a switch, so you just hit the switch. It's kind of a noisy pump. You won't forget it on, that's for sure. And that's how much fluid comes out of it. So it's not a lot. It's enough though. You don't really want any more than that, or you'll be taking a bath in it. I did order one of these brushes that fits on the hose, so the fluid will actually come out the bristles, which is going to be real nice. So that's coming. Yeah, and that'll be an upgrade for sure. That was what I was planning when I was building this thing. I wasn't planning on just pointing the hose at stuff. And then there's our valves. So right now we have it on recirc. You can see the fluid coming through there. From what we were just using. It is sloped to the back. I don't know if you guys could see that when I built it, but the bottom slopes back a half of an inch from the top, so that it's kind of like a pie shape. It goes to the back, and then the drains on the back and the center. Everything comes out of it, but it does drain kind of slow. So if you are tearing down a transmission and stuff, you probably will have quite a bit of waste that you'll have to flush out in it, just because I didn't actually form the metal down to a sump. But anyway, there's the drain. That's for the drain, and then a waste bucket then again goes down that track and in. I might put an angle iron or a flat bar across the back of those so that the buckets don't fall off the back, but normally it'll be pushed up against the wall, so that's not really a concern. So this is a bread basket. So these come from industrial bakers. They end up in scrap yards all the time. I don't know if like they can't use them after a certain amount of time or something. You see these quite a bit at like metal scrap yards if they allow you to go through there and kind of shop them. You'll see these quite a bit. Now that you see this one, you'll be able to just pick it out of the piles and you can grab one. But they're really nice. They're perforated. They're really good for just throwing parts in, so you can keep them separate or whatever. Like when we tear down like these heads, all the valve springs and stuff will just pop right. You just drop them right into one of the baskets, and then you don't have to worry about finding them all because they're in a confined space, and we can clean them all right in there, and they don't go anywhere. So that's kind of cool. So yeah, so that's that. The legs, the adjusters are just nuts welded into the bottom of two, like 3/4 inch nuts, and then just some bolts in them, and that's how you can adjust it. So it is really, really rigid. So if your floor is not level, every time you move it, you'll pretty much have to adjust the feet because it will not flex to the floor. It'll just sit there and wobble, teeter totter or whatever on the two highest legs. So yeah, so that's that. Hope it inspires you to build one or build something. You could do something instead of doing perforated. You could just slope that straight to the back, and then actually have a drain in the back, and that's what like an automatic transmission tables usually are that way. They're big benches. They'll do that, and they'll actually have a drain like a valley in the back that'll eventually go down. Like the professionals will have the big long benches that they can tear down and rebuild on, and that's usually what they use is a style that's more like that than having a perforated top. But being a parts washer and stuff, this is really nice because you don't get puddles and stuff. We're where you're flipping apart and splashing it and all that stuff, because everything just drains through. So it is real nice to have the perforated, but totally not necessary if you can't find any. The stuff's kind of expensive to buy if you don't find it at a junkyard or a scrap yard. So cool. So thanks for watching. Next video after this one is going to be the doghouse in the safari wagon. It's still together. I haven't torn it apart yet. But I think I'm going to tear it apart tomorrow. So yeah, so it's growing on me. Even the yellow is growing on me. I don't know, like, yeah, it's weird, because man, when that thing was 2-wheel drive, that color was hideous. And now I'm starting to actually kind of like it, which is disturbing, because I really disliked it before. And then the spoiler doesn't even look that bad. So yeah, so stay tuned. We got a lot of cool projects once I tear this thing down, and it's going to start going back together, and it's going to stay that way. And then it won't be too much longer after that. We're going to do shakedown run. So really exciting stuff.